Cloud storage feels simple until it isn't. Everything works in the background, files sync, photos upload, emails come through, and then one day, something stops. Uploads fail, emails start to bounce back, and you get that notification saying storage is full. That's usually the moment people start comparing options. Not at the beginning, but when something breaks. This comparison looks at Google Drive, Dropbox, and pCloud from that point of view. What they actually like to rely on long term, not just when everything is working fine. And quickly, if you want to get up to 60% off my favorite cloud storage provider, I've left a link in the description below where you can get up to 60% off. But let's get into this first. So starting with Google Drive, it's probably the most familiar. Everything is connected. Docs, Gmail, photos. That convenience is hard to beat, especially if you're already using Google for everything else. And for collaboration, it's pretty strong. Sharing files, editing documents together, real-time changes, it all works. But the downside doesn't show up straight away. It shows up later, when storage starts to feel limited. Because at that point, the only way forward is upgrading. And that upgrade isn't a one-time thing. It just becomes part of the setup. Dropbox sits in a slightly different position. It's less about ecosystem and more about simplicity. Files syncing quickly, folder updates without issues. It's clean, minimal, and does exactly what you expect, which is why most people stick with it for years. But again, it's the same pattern. Once storage becomes a problem, there isn't really a decision. You upgrade, and that becomes ongoing. Now this is where things get a bit more interesting, because most comparisons stop here. They look at features, speed, integrations, but not the long-term setup and what it actually looks like after a few years of using it. And this is the part most people overlook. pCloud approaches things slightly differently. Now in terms of how it works day by day, that part is actually very similar. You upload files, they sync across devices, everything runs smoothly in the background. But the pricing model is where it changes. There's an option to pay for your storage once and own it forever. That doesn't seem like a big deal at first, until you compare it long term. A few years of upgrading storage on Google Drive or Dropbox, and you start noticing how much you've actually spent. Whereas with pCloud, the cost is upfront, which can feel like a downside initially, but after a certain point, there's nothing left to pay. Now to be fair, this won't matter to everyone, but if your main use is storing files, backups, videos, documents, photos, then the difference becomes less about features and more about how you're paying for it. One model gradually builds into a long-term cost, the other one is more of a one-time decision. Neither is objectively better, it just depends on how you want to use storage and how long you're planning to rely on it. If you want to check out pCloud, my favorite cloud storage option, I've left a link in the description below where you can get up to 60% off their lifetime plans. I'll see you in the next one.